Welcome back to our channel, where we uncover the deepest secrets of Genoa City. Today is a beautiful day to unravel a mystery, but the story we are about to explore is dark and tragic. Lean in close, because what is happening behind the closed doors of the Newman Ranch is something we need to whisper about. Did you know that the shadows in Genoa City are growing darker by the minute? We are all completely addicted to the twists and turns of this show, but the current tragedy unfolding for Nick Newman is something that chills the blood. Nick is not just struggling, he is drowning. He is consumed by a severe addiction to cocaine and fentanyl, a lethal cocktail that began as a desperate coping mechanism during that horrifying nightmare in Las Vegas with Matt Clark. Something that few people notice is how the trauma of that underground bunker, the poison supply he unknowingly took, has completely rewired Nick's brain. He is trapped in a dangerous purgatory, stubbornly refusing to enter rehab until he receives absolute confirmation that his abuser, Matt Clark, is truly dead. But the lack of a physical body has left Nick in a state of hypervigilant terror, relying on the numb embrace of narcotics just to survive the agonizing hours of the day. And this is the part that kept me awake at night. Nikki Newman's visceral, soul-crushing agony. Have you ever watched a mother realize that her own DNA might be the weapon destroying her child? Nikki is drowning in agonizing maternal guilt. She firmly believes that she passed her genetic curse of addiction down to Nick. Every time she looks into his hollow, bloodshot eyes, she does not just see a man losing his way, she sees the ghosts of her own past battles with the bottle. She sees the monstrous reflection of her own demons manifesting in her beloved son. This guilt is eating her alive, tearing at the very fabric of her sanity. She knows that Victor's method of handling this, the iron-fisted, controlling, forceful approach, is only pushing Nick further away. Victor demands compliance, but addiction does not obey commands. Nikki knows this because she has lived it. She knows that to save her son, she has to do something completely unthinkable. Lean in a little closer, because this is where the story becomes a masterpiece of suspense. Did you know that Nikki made a decision so dangerous it could burn the entire Newman empire to the ground? In her absolute desperation, she realized there was only one person in Genoa City who could truly understand the dark, suffocating grip of chemical dependency. She needed someone who had walked through the exact same fires of hell that Nick is currently burning in. She needed Jack Abbott. Yes, Jack Abbott, Victor Newman's most hated, lifelong mortal enemy. Something that few people notice is the profound, complex historical bond between Nikki and Jack. They share a trauma that Victor could never comprehend. Nikki secretly reached out to Jack, begging him to use his own harrowing history with pill addiction to stage a covert intervention for Nick. She knew the risks. She knew that bringing Jack into Victor's sanctuary was an act of ultimate betrayal, but a mother's desperation knows no boundaries. Imagine the sheer tension of this moment. I could barely breathe watching the pieces fall into place. Nikki secretly smuggling Jack Abbott into the heavily guarded Newman Ranch is like smuggling a lit match into a powder keg. The ranch is Victor's fortress, his absolute domain. Every shadow, every portrait on the wall screams of Victor's power. Yet, Nikki managed to slip Jack past the gates, guiding him through the silent, opulent hallways toward Nick's bedroom. And this is the part that kept me awake at night, the sheer audacity of this plan. Jack Abbott, stepping onto the sacred ground of his greatest rival, not for business, not for revenge, but to save the life of his rival's son. It is a testament to the magnetic comfort and shared trauma Jack and Nikki possess. They were bound by a singular, desperate mission, risking everything to pull Nick back from the ledge before the fentanyl claimed his life forever. When Jack finally stepped into Nick's bedroom, the atmosphere was suffocating. Did you know that the visual storytelling in this scene is absolutely haunting? Nick was a mere shadow of the strong, vibrant man we all know and love. He was sweating, shaking, cornered like a wounded animal in his own luxurious cage. The room smelled of stale sweat and profound despair. Jack did not approach him with judgment or demands. Instead, Jack sat down and completely stripped away his own armor. Something that few people notice is how brilliant Jack is when he is vulnerable. He looked at Nick and began to speak about his own darkest days. He spoke about the pills, the lying, the overwhelming need to just make the pain stop for one more hour. Jack laid his soul bare, using his own bleeding history as a mirror for Nick to look into. He was trying to pierce through the thick fog of the cocaine and fentanyl, trying to find the little boy who just wanted to feel safe again. But Nick is so deeply entrenched in his paranoia, so fundamentally broken by the psychological warfare Matt Clark waged against him, that he fought back. He paced the room, his movements erratic and jerky, denying everything. He claimed he had it under control, that he just needed to be sure Matt was dead, that Jack had no right to be there. And this is the part that kept me awake at night, watching Nick violently reject the lifeline being thrown to him. He was lashing out, not because he hated Jack, but because the addiction was fiercely protecting itself. Jack remained calm, his voice a steady, whispering anchor in the storm of Nick's withdrawal. Jack pushed harder, not with anger, but with the brutal and varnished truth of what addiction does to a family. He told Nick that he was not just killing himself, he was driving a stake through his mother's heart. We all know the feeling of a ticking time bomb in this show, right? We are all addicted to that heart-pounding suspense. While Jack was desperately trying to break through Nick's defenses, the inevitable was approaching. Victor Newman had returned to the ranch. You could almost feel the vibrations of his heavy, authoritative footsteps echoing down the hallway. Nikki was standing guard, her heart hammering against her ribs, her eyes wide with a terror that only a mother caught between two warring titans could understand. Did you know that Victor had already been boiling with uncontainable rage over the mere thought of Jack Abbott interfering in his family's affairs? He had suspected Nikki was leaning on Jack, but to actually find him inside the house, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The doorknob turned, and the world as the Newmans knew it was about to shatter into a million irreparable pieces. The moment Victor burst into Nick's bedroom, the oxygen was instantly sucked out of the room. I have to whisper this because the sheer magnitude of Victor's fury was terrifying. The visual of Victor Newman standing in the doorway, his eyes locking onto Jack Abbott sitting intimately in his son's bedroom, is an image that will be burned into the history of Genoa City forever. Victor's rage did not just simmer, it exploded like a dormant volcano. The absolute territorial hatred radiating from him was palpable. To Victor, this was not an intervention, this was a home invasion, this was the ultimate insult. His mortal enemy was sitting in his sanctuary, witnessing the deepest, most humiliating vulnerability of the Newman family. Victor's voice boomed, demanding to know what Jack was doing there, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles were stark white. And this is the part that kept me awake at night, the clash of the titans that followed. Jack, to his immense credit, did not back down. Something that few people notice about Jack is his quiet and yielding courage when he believes he is right. He stood up to Victor, his voice steady, trying to explain that he was there because Nick was dying and needed someone who understood the disease of addiction. But Victor Newman does not hear reason when his territory is breached. Victor roared that Nick is a Newman, and Newmans handle their own problems. He accused Jack of exploiting his son's weakness to strike a blow against him. The sheer blinding hypocrisy and stubborn pride of Victor in that moment were agonizing to watch. He was so blinded by his hatred for Jack that he could not see his own son shivering and sweating just a few feet away, desperately in need of the exact help Jack was offering. Then came the moment that completely broke my heart. Nikki Newman, the elegant, composed matriarch of the family, physically threw herself between these two towering men. Did you know that Nikki has never looked so fragile, yet so fiercely strong? She stood between Victor and Jack, tears streaming down her face, her voice cracking with raw, unadulterated despair. She screamed at Victor to stop. She cried out in absolute desperation that this was not about his ego, not about his endless corporate wars, and not about his hatred for the Abbotts. This was about their son's life. Nikki's intervention was a visceral, physical manifestation of a mother's love. She was willing to take the full brunt of Victor's wrath if it meant buying Jack one more minute to reach Nick. She knew that if Victor threw Jack out now, Nick would be lost to the fentanyl forever. And then Nikki delivered the line that changed everything. She looked directly into Victor's eyes, her own eyes blazing with a mixture of profound love and devastating accusation, and she cried out that his love was killing Nick. I still get chills just thinking about it. Something that few people notice is how deeply Victor's love is intertwined with control. Nikki laid that truth bare in front of everyone. She told Victor that his forceful, demanding, iron-fisted love was suffocating Nick, pushing him deeper into the darkness of his addiction. She declared that Jack's help, the empathetic, shared experience of a fellow addict, was their only remaining hope. To tell Victor Newman that his love is a poison is the ultimate heresy. You could see the shock, the profound betrayal, register on Victor's face. In that single, breathless moment, Nikki had drawn a line in the sand, and she had chosen Jack Abbott's method over her husband's. The fallout from this explosive confrontation is going to be catastrophic. Did you know that this single fight might actually put a permanent end to the Newman marriage? We are addicted to their love story, but this feels like a fracture that cannot be healed. Victor views Nikki's actions as the ultimate, unforgivable betrayal. She did not just undermine his authority, she brought his greatest enemy into their home and declared him the superior savior for their son. The trust between Victor and Nikki has been completely incinerated. The ranch, once a symbol of their enduring legacy, now feels like a cold, hostile battlefield. Victor is operating onto intense fronts now, waging war against Jack Abbott and dealing with the profound realization that his wife has turned against him in their darkest hour. The Newman marriage is hanging by a frayed, burning thread, but the most tragic casualty of this entire explosive war is Nick himself. And this is the part that kept me awake at night. While the titans clashed, while his mother wept and his father roared, Nick slipped further away. The chaos, the screaming, the intense pressure of being the center of this massive familial earthquake, it was all too much for his fragile, drug-addled mind. Instead of an intervention, Nick experienced a trauma response. The very conflict designed to save him has only validated his deepest, darkest fears. He feels like a burden, a pawn in his parents' endless drama. As Victor and Jack shouted over him, Nick retreated inward. The intervention failed spectacularly. The noise and the fury have only pushed Nick to seek the silent, numbing comfort of his stash. He is now sinking even deeper into the abyss of cocaine and fentanyl, completely alienated from the people trying to save him. As we look toward the future of Genoa City, the shadows are only growing longer. The Newman family is officially broken. Nikki is drowning in guilt and marital despair. Victor is consumed by a territorial, blinding fury. Jack is caught in the crosshairs of a war he only entered out of compassion. And Nick is fading into a ghost of his former self. We are all addicted to this show because it reflects the raw, bleeding edges of human emotion. And right now, those edges are sharper than ever. What will Victor do to retaliate against Jack? How will Nikki survive the cold, unforgivable silence from her husband? And most importantly, who is left to save Nick Newman now that the greatest attempt has ended in an absolute disaster? Keep your eyes wide open and your ears to the ground, because the secrets of Genoa City are about to explode, and I will be right here, whispering every single detail to you.